And good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Yellow Jacket Coaches Show with head coach Steve Bordeaux. I'm your host, Keith Womack, and we're going to bring you tonight's show with lots of good information. And of course, Coach Bordeaux will be here as well. The Yellow Jackets improved to 7-3 overall last Friday night and 3-3 in the Sandhills 3A 4A conference as Lee County beat the Cavaliers of Southern Lee by a 26-22 score. Lee County will play this week on the road in the first round of the state 3A playoffs, and I do mean on the road. We'll talk more a little bit about that in a minute. We remind you that our coaches show this season, they will air live every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock right here on WFJA Sports, and these shows will re-air 1 hour before game time on Friday night. The video of each coach's show will post on Wednesday, and it'll be on the homepage of the WFJA website and the WFJA Facebook page. Our coaches shows each week are brought to you by some great sponsors, and of course, it always starts with Jones Printing Company, Wilkinson Cadillac Chevrolet Buick GMC, Domino's, the Dairy Bar and Flame Restaurants, Farm Bureau of Tramway, Sheriff Brian Estes, and Fix It Plumbing. We're going to take a short break and bring in head coach Steve Bordeaux. We'll be back for the Yellow Jacket Coaches Show right after these messages.
WFJA would like to thank the following advertisers for bringing you the Lee County Coaches Show: Jones Printing Company, Domino's, WilkinsonCars.com, Sheriff Brian Estes, Farm Bureau of Tramway, the Dairy Bar and Flame Restaurants, Fix It Plumbing, and Brick Capital Video.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the Yellow Jacket Football Coaches Show. And, of course, this will be the first one, Coach, for the first week of the state 3A playoffs. I'm Keith Womack, and I'm joined in the booth by Lee County head coach Steve Bordeaux. Coach, Jackets are coming off of a regular season victory over the Cavaliers. 26-22 score, a lot closer, I think, than most people thought it was going to be. But congratulations to both teams. It was one of those that, as a fan, we love to see. As a Yellow Jacket fan, we just like it when it's over.
Yeah, no doubt. I think rivalry games and a lot of emotion going on. Really proud of the way the boys fought throughout the game. The clutch performance, I guess, as it is up there. It was a tough game that I thought that if we don't play 4 quarters all the way 48 minutes, then we don't walk away with a win. Hats off to Southern Lee for playing really, really well, and proud of our boys for fighting through it.
Well, Coach, they've played well in early parts of the game all season. We talked to our counterparts that do the Cavalier football show, and they've always played well to open a game, and it kind of faltered. But the longer they stuck around,
yes, sir,
the harder it was for the Yellow Jackets to get ahead and found themselves behind a lot in the second half.
Yeah, no doubt. I think talented athletes on the field. They were very hungry, wanting to play, and beating us would affect some things in the playoffs. And I'm sure all that was talked about all week. The Brick City Bowl game, all those things that come into play. They did not turn the ball over. We did create one turnover, I guess, but overall they did not turn the ball over. So all those things were going in their favor. But luckily we fought through.
Well, Coach, I thought a lot of players stepped up in the absence of B.J. Brown. This is a kid who needed just a couple hundred yards, which I think he would have gotten under normal circumstances, to get to 2,000. Right. But yet he was out, a little minor ankle issue going on, but hopefully that's getting better. We'll talk about that a little later. But in his absence, I thought you had a couple of guys that showed up and showed some great leadership in Schlesinger and JoJo Jennings. And then I also think we talked about it a little bit before we went on air, the offensive line and the receivers. I mean, everybody seemed to step up, especially on that final drive.
Yeah, definitely. Especially what you mentioned JoJo, you mentioned Mark and the offensive line. Those guys really were a determined group on that last drive and other times in the game. I was also really proud of the way Jermaine Banks played. Came in and took some carries and had some really big gains. Playing a little bit of defense too, but Jermaine had a couple of electric runs. We were proud to see the way him and JoJo toted the ball. And Io jumped in on a couple snaps late in the game and made some key plays to help us on that final drive.
Well, Coach, big victory for the Yellow Jackets. Of course, they were going, I think, to the playoffs anyway, but now we know where they're going, Carrollton County. Whew. That's going to be a long drive for all the folks, but we certainly hope that you'll come out and support the Yellow Jackets. We'll tell you a little bit about how you get your tickets a little later in the show, but it's going to be about a 3-hour drive, maybe 3.5. So come early, go down and get you some good seafood and come support the Yellow Jackets. But, Coach, while we got just a minute, now that the regular season's over, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the stats that your players have. Mark Schlesinger ended up throwing for just under 62% completion ratio, 93 of 152. He had 1,213 yards. So is it the best quarterbacking we've ever seen? No, but he did a great job, I think, this year running the offense.
Yeah, definitely. Mark, I think today is much more comfortable than he was in week one. Our offense is much more diverse today than it was week one. And I think that's the growth that he has shown throughout the season has allowed us to do that. The passing yards are there, are nice. He also adds it with his legs with the running game to help stretch some things out. And pretty efficient in the touchdown to turnover ratio and completion percentage. Those are all things that we want to make sure our quarterbacks are handling.
Well, and the things you don't see a lot on stats, he's tough and he runs the ball hard and he's not afraid to hit people. Mm-hmm. And to be the starting quarterback full time his senior year, after really being a primary defensive player last year, I think he did an exceptional job. Of course, we talked about B.J. Brown a little bit earlier, and his stats were just astonishing. If you look through 9 games, because he didn't play the final game, actually didn't play the final game and a half.
Yep.
I think he got hurt on his first carry,
second
half of the Scotland County game. We had 9 games, 216 carries, 1,743 yards. So he needed about 250 to break that 2,000 mark for the season. Averaged over 8 yards a carry, averaged 193 yards a game, and that average was up a little bit above 200 before he got hurt and went out in that Scotland County game. 17 touchdowns. And then JoJo Jennings, what can you say about him? He's the tough guy inside. 50 carries, 434 yards. But, Coach, his yards were usually rolling through people.
Yeah, and sometimes his yards are, from the 5-yard line, you can only get 5 yards on those things. It might be a little bit longer runs if we were out in the middle of the field, averaging 8.7 yards a carry. So every time he touches, it's almost a first down. Then giving Jermaine some more credit, he's averaging 9.1 yards a carry, mainly been the last few weeks, but throughout the season, handling the ball well when he had a chance.
And we can't go without mentioning it. You mentioned it earlier, but Jermaine Banks, who had a lot of spot duty, especially late in games, but he always had some pretty explosive plays. He averaged over 9 yards per carry and had 245 yards, only 27 carries. So I think he gave you guys some great relief, especially toward the end of the games, but he really stepped up against Southern Lee in support. One of those guys that stepped up as BJ was out. And, of course, catching the ball, we talked about Schlesinger at quarterback. Kendall Morris ends up with 521 yards on 39 receptions, a nice year for him. A little over 300 yards for Jaden Hill, and then Logan Walker, Isaiah Peoples both getting about 150 to 180 each. So a nice showing by those guys. 13 touchdowns in total by the air. Of course, 37 of them on the ground, which is where most teams like to get them if they can. But some nice work by your entire offensive staff and some nice stats there. I wish we could talk a little better about your defense, because they played exceptional all year. Our stats are only updated through 9 games, but Anthony Battle 4 interceptions, Kendall Morris with 3, and then tackles. I mean, JoJo with 78 tackles, 7 sacks. I mean, it's pretty impressive. 55 tackles by McKendall and Io Adesanya. And Relique Cotton is another one of those guys. Jay Sally all had solid years, well over 40 tackles.
Yeah, especially the way our defense is set up. Sometimes the D linemen don't get all the all the tackles and all the plays, and sometimes they are making some tackles, but they're doing a great job of keeping our linebackers clean, and that's why those guys should lead us in tackles. We don't really want DBs to lead us in tackles, so it's a good thing not seeing those guys' names up there a whole lot. Anthony Battle, I believe, has 6 interceptions now. I think he's leading the conference, I think, with 6 between the last couple games. So proud of all those guys, and look, hopefully with 6 more games we can add some more stats.
Well, Coach, Jackets ended up averaging 33 points a game. Defensively gave up 25 points a game, but it was usually pretty fast-paced. They had almost 2,700 yards rushing the ball this year, 1,350 passing. So well-balanced, and like I said, I'm just sure you're proud of everything they've been able to do.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to it at the end is we're trying to set ourselves up to be prepared for this point. We're in the bracket, so that's step number 1. Now we have to be prepared to play whoever we have to go and compete against. We're about to flip it over to this week's stuff, but Currituck is the one we drew. So we got to go 1-0 this week to slide over to the next part of the bracket.
Well, how did we get here? Let's talk a little bit about what happened in the conference last week. Of course, Lee County defeated Southern Lee 26-22. Pinecrest defeated Union Pines 24-7. Scotland County squeaks one out by 1 point over Richmond County. And of course, Hope County finished their regular season the week before. But here's where everybody's going into playoffs. Of course, Lee County at 7-3 will be playing Currituck County at 6-4 in the first round of the 3A playoffs. Scotland County at 6-4 will be going to Fike in their first round of the 3A playoffs. In fact, that'll be at Scotland County. Hope County will continue playing, but they'll travel to number 1 seed Hillside over in Durham. That's going to be a tough game. In the 4A playoffs, Richmond County will be at Holly Springs in their first round, and Pinecrest, who comes in as the 7th seed, will travel to, or actually will host Wilmington Laney in their first round of the 4A playoffs. But that's your playoff picture for the first round of the playoffs. We're going to take a short break and hear from some of our great sponsors and be back with Coach Steve Bordeaux in just a moment.
WFJA would like to thank the following advertisers for bringing you the Lee County Coaches Show: Jones Printing Company, Domino's, WilkinsonCars.com, Sheriff Brian Estes, Farm Bureau of Tramway, the Dairy Bar and Flame Restaurants, Fix It Plumbing, and Brick Capital Video.
And welcome back to the Lee County Coaches Show. I'm your host, Keith Womack, and of course, we're still here with Coach Steve Bordeaux. Coach, we'll talk about the playoffs in just a moment, but I do want to go through some accolades from last week. And of course, we have some great sponsors with Norman Financial Group and also Bubba's Subs and Pizza. And our players of the game that John and I talk about post-game. And then, of course, we also have the Wilkinson Cadillac Chevrolet Buick GMC Coaches Player of the Game. We'll start with the Norman Financial Group and Bubba Subs Players of the Game. Offensively, Coach, nobody demanded the end zone more than JoJo Jennings. 112 yards rushing, 1 touchdown, and defensively was awesome. But we're going to give him the offensive player of the game.
Yeah, Joe was the offensive player of the game this week. I think there were a couple key runs, especially late in the game. You know, one the last series we had, we started off with, and I think he has about a 40-yard run and might be carrying 6 or 8 people by the end of it. Determined was a very good word, and I think definitely the whole fourth quarter he was very, very determined to make sure he did everything he could to make sure that he helped us in his ways.
Determined and heart. I also thought,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, Mark Schlesinger played
Definitely.
with that and that final drive too. Defensively, I thought one of his better games, and he's had some good games, so that's saying a lot, was Isaiah McKendall, second leading tackler on the season. He is our Norman Financial Group and Bubba's Subs defensive player of the game.
Yeah, definitely a great pick. I thought after the game when we talked about it was a great pick. Go back and watch the film. I think even more so. Isaiah's things are slowing down for him a little bit, and he's seeing things. He's moving around faster. You know, he's a really smart kid. He's got a good amount of experience at this point. Played some varsity last year and continues to get better every week. So excited to see his playoff run.
Football smart.
Yes,
I love
sir.
that. And then, of course, the coaching staff, you and your coaching staff have a chance to pick who you consider the player of the game overall. I thought a great pick this week, the Wilkinson Chevrolet Buick GMC player of the game, Aiden Roney.
Yeah, Aiden's another one of those guys that just works his butt off, will do anything the team needs him to do. Playing left tackle, plays every snap on the offensive line, jumps in on defense. We moved him around a little bit on defense last week because we needed him to move around a little bit. He's playing some special teams when we need him to. Aiden's the guy that's going to do whatever we need him as best as he can, and does it very well.
So you always know you're going to get 100%.
Without a doubt.
Well, congratulations to Aiden Roney, the Wilkinson Coaches Player of the Game, and to JoJo Jennings and Isaiah McKendall for our Norman Financial Group and Bubba Subs and Pizza players of the game. Coach, we'll get into this week now. Friday night, you guys, and we will be right there along with you guys on 105.5 WFJA. Travel down to Currituck County. If anybody doesn't know where that is, most of you do. It's down at the Outer Banks.
Yeah. Yep.
It's down below Havelock, right?
It is northeast, about as far as you can go, and then right beside the Atlantic Ocean. That's the best description I got.
So come early,
yes, sir,
and get some good seafood. That's what we're trying to tell you.
I'm sure they got plenty of that around.
Their state rank, Coach, is 188. I guess officially the city is Barco, North Carolina. Okay. They play in a split conference as well. It's a 2A, 3A split conference. Some things we do know about them just from looking on film. They got a couple of quarterbacks. I'm not sure the names, but number 3 and number 5 that will both play a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So the quarterbacks, they rotate them in and out. They both are capable throwers, and they both have actually ran the ball a little bit. Number 3 is probably the more athletic of the two as far as what we've seen so far on film. But number 5 has had a couple decent runs as well. So both of them will be threats with the arms and the legs. At running back, they have a couple guys in the backfield by most formations. Number 7 for them has almost 1,500 yards. And another guy that really plays a key role is number 30. Both of those two guys tote the rock and run hard. And their offensive line has done a really good job with what I would call being very multiple on offense. They're one of the teams that probably do as many different things as we've seen anybody do all year.
Well, of course, number 7 you're talking about, Ryan Fisher, will certainly be calling his name
Definitely.
quite a bit for Currituck County Friday night. And so just to make sure everybody's aware of that, I do want to remind you, too, you can also, if you're there at the game and you want to listen, or if you've got friends and family out of town, they can also go to WFJA, WWGP radio.com and listen from anywhere in the country online. So make sure you go to the WFJA website and you get a link to take you right there. Coach, also a receiver, Damon Duke, understands got 24 catches, 8 touchdowns on the season. Probably going to be a threat as well.
Yeah, definitely. So he's definitely their key guy when they're trying to throw the ball. A lot of times they'll try to isolate him and try to get one-on-one coverage or create some space for him. And he's done a really good job of, once he's got the ball in his hands, he's had some really big plays, and it's been weekly. So from looking at stats, on the defensive side of the ball, they don't have a whole lot of guys playing both ways. There's a couple. Number 30 will rotate in a little bit. There's a couple guys that do pop in. They do have, for the most part, a whole nother group. And up front defensively, they do a good job. They have a couple good-sized kids that are going to challenge us up front to be moved. And I've been impressed with the couple linebackers, how they run and flow to the football.
Well, just a reminder, do want to make sure we're clear on this. Friday night, as the Jackets get ready to take on Currituck County, the kickoff will actually be at 7 o'clock,
Yes,
which is 30 minutes sooner than normal, which will be good for the ride home.
Yeah.
So the Coach's Show will re-air at 6 o'clock on Friday night. Of course, John and I will come on live at 6:30, and we're excited about bringing some Yellow Jacket playoff football. Also, again, just a reminder, most of the time people have been used to going to gofan.com for tickets. They'll be accepting cash, so make sure you have enough cash to get your family in. What do they normally run? $8?
It should be $7.
$7.
But bring 8 just in case. I don't think they should be charging the GoFan fee, but we'll be prepared. Might be able to save us $1 by going with cash. And hopefully everybody that can come to the game. If not, we do know a great place to listen to it. We know there'll be some people back that won't be able to make the trip and staying home. Maybe all get together and have a listening party or something and root on the Jackets back from Sanford.
That's right. It will be live right here on 105.5 WFJA. And just a reminder, www.wfjawwgpradio.com. And you can listen to it from anywhere you want to, and it'll be nice and hopefully crystal clear. We'd like to, Coach, first of all, best of luck coming up with this week's playoff game. And if everything works out like we hope it will, we'll be back next Tuesday night to discuss some more Yellow Jacket football. And we'd like to make sure that we thank you all for listening all season long to the Yellow Jacket Coaches Show. We're going to take our final short break. We'll be right back after these messages.
WFJA would like to thank the following advertisers for bringing you the Lee County Coaches Show: Jones Printing Company, Domino's, WilkinsonCars.com, Sheriff Brian Estes, Farm Bureau of Tramway, the Dairy Bar and Flame Restaurants, Fix It Plumbing, and Brick Capital Video.
And welcome back to the Yellow Jacket Coaches Show. And, of course, special thanks to Coach Steve Bordeaux for coming in tonight. And we'd just like to remind everybody that the Coaches Shows this season, this week, as this season they have this season, will air live every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock here on WFJA Sports. And these shows will re-air 1 hour before the game time this Friday night. Video of each coach's show will post on Wednesdays on the homepage of the WFJA website and the WFJA Facebook page. Our Coaches Show is brought to you by a great group of sponsors, and of course we hope you will thank these advertisers with a thank you, and even with your business. Bringing you the Coaches Show for 2022 have been Jones Printing Company, Wilkinson Cadillac Chevrolet Buick GMC, Domino's, the Dairy Bar and Flame Restaurants, Farm Bureau of Tramway, Sheriff Brian Estes, and Fix It Plumbing. We'd like to remind you that this week's game will kick off at 7. So the pregame show will come on at 6, and we'll come on live at 6:30 with the kickoff at 7 o'clock. So we just want to thank you guys for helping us out this year and listening in. It's now time for Yellow Jacket football.